Alright, let me show you how I always mortise out for hinges. My two surfaces are coplanar, and I've got a little mark which designates where the hinge starts from the bottom of the piece. Using my pin as a reference with this seam. Just going to eyeball it, sharp razor blade, very gently, first couple times just to score the grain. After that, the blade's pretty much going to follow it. So, all the way around real quick. Alright, I don't know if it's going to show up on camera, but I've got a razor blade mark all the way around. And now I can just take my chisel, and you can hear it snap into the little groove. Hear it? And just using body weight to get this line started a little bit bigger. Alright, now that I got the line a little bit more pronounced with the chisel, I've got a laminate router with a straight bit that is set to the depth of just a little bit more than the thickness of this plate. And I want it to be just a little bit more because once this thing is all done, I'm going to take the hinges out and I'm going to completely sand it. I'm not going to take a lot of material off with the sanding, but I am going to take some, so that will compensate for it. Alright, with the router removing most of the material, I can clean it up with a chisel. And I'm not the world's greatest at chisel work, so bear with me here. But one thing I have noticed is the smaller you break up your removing pieces, the less your chances are of creating some type of disaster. If you're going to remove all this material in a couple passes by themselves without breaking this up, you could, not saying you will, but you could have a little bit of blowout on the side of your mortise, and that's not what we want. Alright, now that I've got it all cleaned up all the way around, I can start making my perimeter a little bit deeper. And this is pine, so I'm just using my body weight. I'm not using a mallet of any kind. And you just start to very carefully, very gently remove. And like I said, I'm no expert, but I always like to go with the grain first and then clean up cross grain. Alright, so there it is, cleaned up, and we can grab one of these hinges and test our fit. It's already, with one side in there, it's really snug that way. We'll actually just pop it into place, and that's not going anywhere. That's nice and smooth, very quick, very easy. Good job. Now, one of the hardest things to do, especially in pine, one of the hardest things to do is get this hole nice and centered. You can go out and you can buy a nice centering drill bit. That would be great, but I don't have one. So what I do, and what I've been doing for a long time, is just taking a number 2 Phillips bit, and creating an indent. You're making a countersink, basically. But what that does, is it creates a cone shape, or it creates a center point, basically, that you can easily drill out. And what I'm going to be drilling with to make these pilot holes is just a brad nail. It'll do the job just fine. And let me grab the camera real quick, and you can see with the camera that those holes are nice and centered. So yes, a self-centering bit would be awesome, but I do not have one, so improvise. Back into the mortise, and I've got to hunt down those screws. You know, cutting mortises, when I first started woodworking, hobby woodworking, whatever, mortises is one of those things that always used to intimidate me. Mortising out for hinges, you know, you can either make a really clean look, or you can just butcher the crap out of it and it looks like that you've really just butchered it, you know. And these things are super simple, super easy. You can make a jig for your router to follow, but I always find that by the time I make a new jig for each one of these different hinges that I buy, and you know, I lose the jig, or just, you know, the jig moves just a little bit, it's just so much more simple to cut your own. So much more simple to cut your own mortises. Now, of course, I used a router to remove most of the material and to create a good depth gauge, but you know, you could have done all that with a chisel. One down, one to go. Now notice there's two pieces here. I'm just hinging these two together. On the bottom side, I've already hinged these two pieces together, so it's going to open up accordion style. This is my last hinge to install, and also real quick, before you put the hinge in place, go ahead and mark your joints. I'm taking this whole thing back apart to sand it and clean up all the surfaces. And if I mark out number 4, or mark out my joints on the outside, I'm going to sand it off. So put it underneath the hinge. You'll never know. And this project is done. Typically on Shoji screens, you see the multiple grid patterns, but this is the design that she wanted, so this is the design that was built. Very simple, very quick, very easy, and very strong. A lot of half-lap joints, very strong joints. And she does a lot of yarn work with crocheting and whatnot, if I'm not mistaken. So I think she's going to get creative with all these openings, and we'll see where that goes. So if you like what you see, like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.